Hi, today on the Wise News Network, I'm Rusty Wise.
I'm Jermaine Gash.
And I'm Mason Beam.
And this is Who Gives a Hoot, segment number 2.
Yep.
So who gives a hoot? That's the question.
Yes.
So do you give a hoot? If you give a hoot while we're talking about things, put it in the comments below. We could use your feedback. So if you give a hoot, enter it in the comments below.
And while we're on that, every like and subscribe is extremely important to us. So if you haven't subscribed yet and you're enjoying our content, go ahead and find that button for me.
Yes. And also, if you have any segment ideas or you feel that we missed something, definitely let us know.
All right, we're going to start it off. And I guess we'll start it off, Jermaine. What do you want to talk about first?
Yes. Well, we are based in Cherryville, North Carolina, for the viewers who may not know. And Cherryville has a lot going on at the moment. There's lots of new businesses on the come up, and one that is now open is the Fuzzy Cow Yogurt Shop. And I've walked by many times and seen so many happy faces out there. I have yet to try it, but it looks really good. Have you guys given it a shot yet?
Not yet. I think it's the kind that it's yogurt, and I think you weigh it. I think it's kind of like some others that
Like
in the area.
Yeah.
Sweet frog.
Sweet
Yeah,
frog.
like a sweet frog.
Yeah, sweet frog.
Oh, very nice.
So I guess you can eat as much as you want or as least as you want.
And I've heard they're changing out the flavors pretty regularly, so there's plenty of variety.
Nice. Perfect for these, like, we're getting some really hot weather too, so
Supposed to be reaching 100 this weekend.
that's coming right in handy.
Yeah. The fish box is opening soon.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe towards the 1st of August, I heard. So
Cannot wait for that, guys.
yeah. So a lot of good things happening in Cherryville. A lot of buildings getting upgraded, that sort of thing. New restaurants maybe on the horizon. So a lot of things, and new signage. Saw a new sign at the entrance coming in, and some new flowers. So things are happening in Cherryville, North Carolina.
And also the new basketball court. That looks really good.
Yeah. Basketball and pickleball.
And
Now,
pickleball.
have y'all ever played pickleball?
I've not. No.
I haven't either, but I'm actually, after hearing about it, I'm actually willing to give it a shot. So
I saw a meme where it says pickleball is for older people that can't play tennis or can't afford to play golf. So
oh my God.
I don't know, but it is a trendy sport.
Mm-hmm.
And some people call it a sport. Some people just call it a fancy way to exercise. But there's a lot of injuries. I saw one report where this year they expect close to $400 million worth of injuries to individuals. So they say stretch, get warmed up before you play pickleball.
Well, I'll definitely be stretching before I give it a shot. Have you guys played pickleball? Are you guys interested in pickleball? Because there is one coming to Cherryville probably soon. So do you guys play? And if so, let us know in the comments.
If you're wondering where the pickleball court is slated to go to, it's going to be going to the park that is roughly behind the BB&T and Small Town Kitchen.
Yes, on the pickleball. In 2022, there was 8.9 million people that played pickleball.
Goodness. So it's definitely a growing sport here.
Yeah. And approximately 400 million will be spent on injuries this year. So I was just checking, and so stretch, get warmed up. So do not get hurt playing pickleball. And also, they were mentioning about a possible gym coming there in the area of the swimming pool.
Very
Now,
nice.
is that going to be an outdoor gym or any sort of idea on that?
I really don't know. I haven't seen the
Okay.
plans. They said it was similar to Stanley's. So I don't know. I need to look at that. They did mention they've looked at that. I don't know if it's indoor. I guess they say they have bathrooms. So I assume it's an indoor gym.
Okay. Wow.
Public restrooms would be an upgrade for the town currently.
Yeah.
And we can't forget, actually, today was the farmer's market. I think this is the second
Yes.
time that it's been back in, 2 years? So
Yeah, it's been a couple years since they've had the farmers market because of the construction and that sort of thing. But we went by there today, and they were having the farmers market in the little mini park there.
yes. So definitely check that out, guys.
Yeah. The election is coming up.
Yes,
That
it is.
And as far as the election, the mayor position is up. Ward 2 and Ward 4 is up. Now, H.L. Beam is the mayor, and John Abernathy's in Ward 2, and then Malcolm is in Ward 4. But Malcolm does have a challenger by Janice Hovis, which used to be the city manager in Cherville.
Yes.
So no one else has filed as of today. And so we'll see exactly what happens on that.
Yes. And if you haven't seen the segment recently, we actually had the chance to interview Janice.
Yes, we did. Also, on that, if you want to know what ward you're in personally, you can take a look at our Facebook page or our website. It's in both places, the county ward map. And if you're looking to run, that's a piece of information you need to know.
Yeah, I did contact the Gaston County Board of Election for a map, and they did not have one. So Gaston County finally made us a map for the wards, because I couldn't believe we didn't have a ward map. So I contacted Gaston County Board of Elections. They said, no, you need to contact this lady at Gaston County zoning. So she sent me a map of the wards, and that's the first time I'd seen a ward map. And it is drawn a little funny. I always thought the wards were basically 150 and 274. But if you look at the map, it goes over a block or two.
Yep.
It's a little different than I thought.
The road beside the graveyard, which you would
Pink
think.
Street, yeah.
Yeah, you would think maybe that would be to put the high school in a certain ward, but it doesn't include the high school, so it's a little bit confusing as to why.
Yeah, it goes down Pink and then Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it's on our website. So, if you're thinking about running or just curious on what ward you may live in, check out that map.
Mm-hmm.
And what else is going on? Electric rates.
Yes.
Everyone's contacted us about electric rates.
This is certainly a hot topic.
Well, and I did a little study about 3 years ago. A couple years ago, went to the city council meeting. And it was that REA and Duke was lower than Cherville, about 25%. Now, Duke is approximately 15% lower, and the city of Cherville and REA is about even now. Actually, Cherville's just a fraction of a percent less than REA. So that's a good thing.
Yes.
And by doing the study, and what they've done is they used to pull things out of the electric fund or allocate funds into other areas. The economic development was a big area that they were pulling funds out of the electric funds, and that was just 2 years ago. Basically in 2020, 2021, they were pulling out a lot of stuff out of the budget.
Yes.
And so, I did look at the budget, and they are still spending money on that stuff, but it's out of the general fund or out of the EDC now.
Yes.
So back a couple of years ago, the EDC had like 1%, and now it's up to 8 or 9%, I think. And some of the things that they were basically using for the electric funds, and back in 2021 in the budget, in the electrical area, they were spending money on the Cherville Main Street program facade grants and just all kind of things, new business recruiting, marketing on Main Street, mini park development, gateway parcel acquisition, their Cherry Blossom Festival, the Independence Day food vendors, the Scaryville Little Spooks Parade, Whoville, the Christmas Parade, movies in the park. All this was being pulled out of the electric fund. So now that they're not pulling those items or using that money for this, then now we can have lower rates. And Cherville probably could have one of the lowest electric rates in the state.
Wow.
Yeah, it really can.
That will definitely become available. If they're correct, they're slating that they're going to pay off their debt to electricities in 2031, which is when we should see a significant drop in the electric rate. But if they were able to get it underneath Duke and REA, which it is already underneath REA, I wouldn't even, as a citizen, I wouldn't care if the rate dropped too much more than that, as long as they did things like put the money from it back into roads and infrastructure development that Cherville's kind of needing at the moment.
That was a statement that I wanted to add too. I know that, there's quite a few residents who have brought it to our attention about, the high power bill, et cetera. But, we had a conversation earlier at lunch, and what a lot of people don't know is that your power bill is more than just the power.
Yes.
There's a number of things in that.
Yeah, when you look at a city power bill, there's water, sewer, trash, yard waste. There's a lot to that. It's not just the power. Now, when you get a bill from Duke Energy or REA, it's just electricity.
Right.
So people have to understand, they say, oh, I've got a $5,000 power bill. Only the electricity is a small part of that, or it could be a large part of that, but a lot of it is how much water and sewer they use, which if you use so many gallons of water, you're using so much, the same thing as sewer. So a lot of people think they have a high power bill, and a lot of times they do, but it encompasses the water, sewer, and those other areas that they have to pay for. And one thing I'd like to bring up is in Cherryville, majority of the houses are old. A lot of the heating and air units are old. A lot of the houses are not insulated. So you may need an energy audit to come out and see maybe where you're wasting energy.
Also, for those of you looking to find out more about the electrical rates, if you want to know where that is, it's at the end of the city's budget. There's a section at the end. It's about 51 pages long. It starts with residential, though, so don't get too scared of it. And that's where you can learn more about your electrical rate, how many kilowatt hours that you have before it goes down, and so forth.
And when you get into commercial industrial rates, it's very confusing. And it's not just Cherryville or the local towns, it's REA and Duke, because there's different minimum rates, there's multipliers for your meters, there's a lot of demand rates, so it's very confusing when it comes to industrial and commercial. On residential, it's a little more clean cut. So we're heading in the right direction now that they're not allocating funds out of that to other areas. The electric funds cleaned up tremendously.
Very nice.
And I went to council and spoke a couple of years ago about that. And then now they're heading in the right direction. Really are.
Yeah. And also, as we can see, Cherryville has so many things going on.
Most
and
definitely.
it certainly seems that, they're on the path of growth. How do you guys feel about that? I know that's an ongoing topic on social media and just in general. How do you guys feel about smaller cities or towns competing with other cities or larger cities and actually growing and bringing businesses in? And I know Cherryville is a place specifically where a lot of people come to get away from the hustle and bustle. So it definitely seems that Cherryville is growing. And how do you guys feel about that in the comments? And how do you guys feel about it?
Small towns are needed in America, and I think a lot of people move to a small town for the smallness. And Cherryville's a town of 6,200 people now, give or take. And so I basically think Cherryville is a town. It says the city, but sometimes I think you need to have controlled growth. If we get into 15, 20,000 population, do we need that? Everybody says we need to grow, we need to grow. Well, do people really want growth, or they just want the amenities? Do they want parks and splash pads and quality of schools? People say they want growth, but most people don't really want growth. They just want a better quality of life and better amenities. So with growth means more issues and problems. But I kind of chuckle a lot of times because I see these cities, they're in competition with each other. They have their own marketing teams. It's like, live here because we have this, move here because we have that. And Cherryville years ago, or all the Shelby, Lincoln, people lived there because they worked there. The mills, that's where they worked. In the mill villages, you didn't want to go live anywhere else because that's where you worked. Well, now, I guess with internet, people can, work from home. So it's this big push to market everyone's town. It's like, come here, we're great. Come here, let's have our downtown looking good. And I know the mayor and I disagree on that. I don't think that your downtown is your economic driver. I think it's your looks and your aesthetic pleasing driver, but I don't think it's your economic driver. I think I'm myself personally, and this is a roundtable discussion. This is our opinions. We're not doing a news story here, but in my opinion, I would spend more money in Raleigh and Washington and just try to get jobs here and try to get businesses here. 500 to 1,000 employer here. The amount of money that's spent on downtowns, I'm not saying it's not needed, but you can't continually do that. I would hire a lobbyist to try to get industry here, because that's what we need, and the quality of life. So people, I think America has a issue with growth, just like the stock market. You know, companies, if a stock market public company doesn't continue to grow, they just basically fire the CEO. And it could be a great company, but when it comes to stock markets, you have to grow, you have to grow, you have to grow. But I like quality over quantity. And that's just with all our businesses here. We want to do quality over quantity, so to speak. You know, we're growing, all our companies are growing. But I think in America, there's a push, or even in the world, that you have to keep growing.
Yes. Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of controlled growth. I think worldwide, just everywhere, it does seem like these cities are now becoming their own businesses in a way, and they want to allure people and draw more people in, more residents. But do you think that maybe the times are changing? That, you know, now everything is a business.
That's how things are being treated, honestly, is that the city is a business that has to grow. And it in Mount Holly, we saw that. They wanted to push forward with like the growth of their museum. They're looking at spending between $1 to $3 million on it. And that's all based off of, well, part of it is based off getting things about the building that need to be fixed. So, but all of it is based off of getting the downtown more beautified and making it an attraction, basically. It's almost like we're making everyone's downtown their own theme park themed towards their town or city.
Well, it does appear that like most of the cities now have, I guess, a marketing budget to advertise their city, you know, on billboards or television, wherever it be.
Yes, and like in Shelby, even though they don't have their own personal chamber of commerce, they do have the entire Earl Scruggs Center, and now they have the Don Gibson and all these other little pieces to just make more people hang out there. And while it is nice to have a beautified downtown that people can hang out in, yet again, back to Rusty's point, it's not necessarily the economic driver of a city.
I think some people are wondering, like, when is enough, so to speak? Because in some of these places, people do move to get away from that. So.
Well, you know, Disney World has a great Main Street USA, but people are there for the rides, you know what I'm saying? So the Main Street USA looks pretty, but, you know, people are there for the rides and the meat of the park. So, you know, I think government keeps creating its own headaches. Because once you grow and you spend money on a lot of parks and a lot of stuff, then you have to maintain that. So it's like a snowball that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you have to grow. You get into a situation to where you have to grow or you have to raise taxes. So government turns into a private business, but its customers are the taxpayers, and it really has a blank check. And most of these cities compare themselves to each other, and just because you're doing it doesn't mean I have to do it. But that's kind of how, you know, if a city sees, oh, they're doing this, they have a splash pad, then we have to have a splash pad. And that's even happening in the universities.
Yes,
you know,
it
the
is.
universities are, it used to be about education. Now it's the amenities.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, how many coffee shops do they have?
How many restaurants do they have on campus?
I mean, the kids today, it better have a Starbucks or they're not going there. You know?
That would definitely be in one of my factors too. So,
well, or scooters. I've drank way too much scooters.
Makes me miss the Broad River Coffee Company. It used to be at Gardner Webb. Now it's a Starbucks.
But we love to know. This is a very interesting topic. And how do you guys feel about, you know, not just Cherryville, this is happening everywhere. You know, cities are growing and marketing, encouraging future residents. How do you guys feel about that? We like to know in the comments, just in general.
Yeah, put them in the comments below. You can agree with us, disagree with us. You know, no profanity, but you know, we don't mind. Good, active dialogue is good.
Yes.
And that's why, you know, we started the Wise News Network, is to shed some light on things, open dialogue. People can talk. And I think it's a good thing.
It is. And it's good to have different opinions, and come together and talk about it.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask your questions down below too, because every time I see a question in our comments that I don't know the answer to, I tend to go look for an answer. Whether I find it or not, but
Yeah, and we have a lot of public documents. We have not published all of them.
No, we haven't.
We're researching stories constantly every day. We're getting ready to bring on an investigative reporter, more of a journalist. So we're growing. And it's demand. I mean, people keep blowing my phone up and email and phone calls, really appreciating what we're doing.
Yep.
They really are. Now, one hot topic in Cherville, and of course we've got to talk about it before we get off here, is the museum.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen the most recent developments, you can go back to the video that we put out on Tuesday that kind of goes over the overview of that and goes over the overview of the political candidates that are running.
Yeah. The museum is a hot topic, but I think the museum is kind of like an example of kind of what's happening in America in small towns. It's not just Cherville. We've seen it in Mount Holly. Mount Holly's looking to keep their building and possibly lease it out and try to make money. And that's where, does business really need to be in business renting spaces out? Does government really need to be in business possibly putting other people out of business? That's, when government starts crossing the line a little bit, and, people rely on the government to do everything for them. But generally, economics and capitalism will eventually work itself out. But I think government is kind of pushed to make things happen sometimes.
Well, it kind of goes back to that, every city being like a small business in a way. If you're not attracting new residents in, ultimately, I think the mindset is that you die off.
Yes, and then also back with the thought that I don't really believe that they should be running a business as the government. They should not be renting out places for the most part. There are certain things, like if the city were to rent to the museum, which I'm talking about Mount Holly, not Cherville. I'm not going to get into that today, but
yeah, we are.
We are? Okay.
Well, we'll hit the highlight.
Okay.
I mean, the city council meetings have been too good not to ignore. I mean, we had a preacher and a mayor going at it last one time. Now we had the president of the Historical Association.
About to be drug out by the sheriff.
Yeah, so I mean, it makes good stories. It is interesting. Yeah.
But talking on Mount Holly's side of it, it's like, I can agree with them doing something like renting out the space for a historical museum that is something about the city itself, but like, where do you draw the line? Do you draw it at like small businesses? Do you draw it at coffee shops? Is there going to be some sort of, if it is a government incentivized business, is there going to be some sort of program to help out the people that go in, their renters? These are questions that they really need to answer, or just kind of be more hands off of that topic.
Almost like there's an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
As far as the Cherville Historical Museum, there was a lawsuit filed Monday, and we showed the first page of that on our segment. And I think it was filed Monday at 4:55 p.m.
Yes.
We haven't really dove into that, exactly the ramifications of that. As of today, I don't think the museum has been sold as far as it being closed on. And that may happen this week, or we don't know. I think it is supposed to happen within 30 days.
Yes.
I think that's what the public notice says. So we'll keep you up to date on that as far as what happens. As I've stated publicly, personally, I would like to see it stay a museum in perpetuity. And I would like to see it ADA accessible, all 3 floors. I think that would be the best thing for the museum, for the downtown, and for the citizens of Cherville themselves. Because as far as the portfolio of what Cherville Main Street LLC has, they have like 30 buildings now. So that's only like 3.3% or something of that portfolio. So one building, I don't think will disrupt that portfolio, or at least it shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
Well, we have seen also in other cities that are that can relate to this issue currently is how the city is actually willing to work with the museums, almost like a collaboration to find out what's the best answer for those buildings.
Yeah, and I think the city, they did start out trying to work with the museum board, but they wanted to appoint all the board members. And I think there was some issues with that. Some board members left. So I think the museum has turned personal between the council and the board members. Actually, I can kind of see that, you know.
It wouldn't get so heated if it wasn't personal.
But I could care less who's on the board. It doesn't matter to me who owns the building. I think the best thing, like I said before, is it stay a museum, ADA accessible. And 50 years from now, it's a museum. 100 years from now, it's a museum. Not saying you can't. You could still have events in the museum. There's a lot of things you could do with it. But I think at the end of the day, if it was turned into a restaurant, restaurants are what, 8-year shelf life?
Mm-hmm.
And it would be 10 different restaurants. I mean, it's hard telling what would happen.
Cherville has trouble keeping more restaurants. You've all seen it if you're a resident, that after a couple of months, even if you thought the restaurant was good or not, on Main Street, they tend to be closed down. And that has several reasons for happening. Most of the time, restaurants are hard to run, to begin with. But otherwise, it's hard to keep up bills. It's hard to pay for freezers. In fact, we'd heard that some of the owners that restaurant owners they're trying to get to move to Cherville didn't necessarily want to, just because they didn't want to buy a walk-in freezer.
Yeah, I don't know. I heard that too. But, you know, the economics of Cherville, we're still a town of 6,200 people. Mm-hmm. And the economics does not work. One restaurant addition may work, but you get 3 or 4 restaurants here at one time. You get more shops. Everyone's not going to survive. It's just the economics does not work. The traffic count does not work. The population count does not work. You know, these 2 cluster home neighborhoods that are coming, which we haven't heard a whole lot about that. You're growing the housing count by 1.5 times
mm-hmm.
just in 2 neighborhoods. So if you snap your fingers and had that today, yeah, they might be able to support downtown, but you know, that's going to be years away.
It will be years away. And the pricing on those houses set at around $500,000 per house is looking to draw in people outside of Cherville. So it will, if it goes over the way they're planning, it goes over, result in higher population density.
Yeah, I understand that, but those neighborhoods, I think, have their own little parks
mm-hmm.
and have their own little amenities. What's
the one going on Reekway is supposed to end up having a swimming pool, a golf course. I think it's supposed to have a gym, if what I heard is still going to go through.
Okay.
So
what's those retirement communities down in Florida? What are they called? What are they called?
That's a good question.
You know the ones I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. I just actually naming it.
Yeah.
Senior villages.
Yeah, I mean it's. I think, like Bob Barker said, Cherville has to find out what it wants. Does it want to be an up and coming community, or does it want to be more of a retirement community? Does it want to cater to youth? Does it want to cater to retirement age people? I mean, it kind of needs to find its identity, because we're not in the mountains. We're not a tourist destination.
No.
We're just not. I don't know how we become a tourist destination. We do have some cool murals now, mm-hmm. and we do have some museums, but how do we become a tourist destination? I just don't know. So I think Cherville needs to find its way.
Its identity. That is a good question there.
I mean, I like your idea that you've discussed of trying to turn Main Street into a movie setup. I'll get plenty of people here.
Well, no, that is an idea. I mean, you could fix all the buildings up, and if we can't fill them up, we could make a movie set out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Cherville does have a neat looking downtown.
It
It's
is
beautiful.
pretty.
It's beautiful. And I love, being downtown, especially now, seeing more people out, especially in front of the Fuzzy Cow. It is a good
Yes.
feeling, and it's just a good walkable downtown.
Yeah, it is. It's a cool downtown, but it's not really your economic driver. Eventually, they'll have to curtail some of the money spent there. You just can't keep dumping, $700,000 a year into downtown. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But we'll see what happens. I know there's some businesses looking on 150, down near Walmart, and there's a lot of people eyeing Cherville for new businesses. So we'll see how all that pans out.
Yeah, the next, few years should be very interesting.
But I like going to the grocery store in 5 minutes. But there's more traffic on 150 now that I've noticed.
Yes.
Getting out of here at around 5 o'clock or in the mornings, it can get a little rough. That I've noticed.
Maybe we can get the traffic count up high enough to get a Waffle House.
I don't know. We'll see.
That'd be great.
Yeah, speaking of breakfast, Ronald's, had that $5.99 special, and then they did away with it, and somebody went, and it was like $11, and they flipped out. So it's like,
Can't please everybody.
No, but that's the demographics of Cherville. I mean, you can't. If you get much over $20, $25, the demographics of Cherville does not work.
And even today,
For food, for dinner.
even today, while we were eating at home, folks, while I was looking over the menu, I noticed for the first time that they have a ribeye on the menu, and that's $22. And this is nothing against home folks. This is just how people at Cherville are. I wonder how often that gets ordered, because everything else on the menu is pretty much under $10.
I've eaten prime rib there on Friday nights.
They have prime rib?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Everyone else didn't know that.
They have prime rib on Friday nights. I know I've eaten prime rib several times there. Unless they just stopped it. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You need to get out more.
Yeah, we love some home folks.
Yeah. Home folks is good, but Cherville could stand one or two more restaurants, but you get much more than that, then the economics don't work right now. It's risky. Very risky.
Yeah, I wonder. That's definitely an ongoing story, but I'd love to know more about those upcoming homes. Like a timeline, as far as a timeline, and maybe that's something that we'll report on in the near future. So.
Yeah, it's been about a year and a half since they approved them. About a year ago, they approved the Rickway one, I guess, and then the House Strap property. It's been about a year and a half, I think.
Yes, and as far as the one Rickway goes, whenever I was attending the city council meetings for that, they did estimate like a 10-year timeline before it's completed. So
yeah.
And for those who don't know, what's the numbers looking like for those? Like, how many homes will be in each one of these?
I believe there's
Approximately.
Isn't it 400 going to the one on Rickway, and then
like
500?
550 or
Yeah.
550. It started out over here at like 600, and I think the setback between houses was 10 feet. Now I think they've made it 12 feet. So that's why the count went down.
Okay.
So I haven't heard anything else, and they're supposed to be putting in a new water line too. So, but the feds are getting ready to raise interest rates again.
Yes.
So that just kills housing. If the feds keep raising rates, then every time they raise it, that could be a few $100 more on a mortgage on a house. Which housing, there's hardly no residential rental properties in Cherville. Very, very few. Because I have people ask me all the time about rental properties, and all ours are full. So,
And in other news, there is a church in Gastonia, North Carolina, that was recently fined $60,000 for allowing the homeless to kind of camp out on their campus. That church is called Faith, Hope, Love Community Enrichment Center. How do you guys feel about that? $60,000 fine, guys.
in my opinion, a church should be able to open themselves up as a hostel at any time they want. They're a tax-exempt organization. I know that's not necessarily in the bylaws of a church that they can become a hostel, but if it's not being used outside of a service, what's the harm? If the church itself is willing to clean it up and make sure that everything's going well, where's the harm?
Yeah, I see both sides of it. It could be a health issue if it's starting to get overcrowded. but the point of a church is to help people. So I see both sides. The church is trying to help people. The county's probably trying to make sure it doesn't turn into a health issue. It may be getting overcrowded, could have neighbors complaining. That's a story that we haven't investigated yet, but we were contacted about that story. But it comes with population. The population of America, as it increases, you're going to have more homeless. And back to raising interest rates. The interest rates and housing and the cost of housing is forcing some people to live on the streets because they cannot afford to buy a house.
And we've seen that here in our town of Cherryville.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, Saturday night, 12:30, I was riding through Main Street, and there's a couple homeless people with their whatever they had left on the sidewalks. And then there was 4 other boys running around town, and that was late, about 12:30 Saturday night. And so we do have homeless. I know for a fact we have homeless in Cherryville. And there's been talk of a homeless shelter, and I think that is still being talked about. Whether we have it on Main Street or it's in one of the other areas, who knows what may happen there.
It's needed because we are starting to see more homeless in Cherryville.
I know growing up, I never saw any. And I understand there's 3 kids as of graduation that were homeless. Not that they graduated, but my understanding there was 3 kids from a homeless family in the school system.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely happening. I grew up in Shelby, and like you said, I actually didn't see that growing up. But, even when you go to Shelby now, you see, unfortunately, there's homeless there on the street there.
Yeah, Shelby has had homeless people standing on the median of 74 like every day recently. Normally around lunchtime, they stand in the median of Highway 74, which is not a safe place to be, and they're trying to raise money for themselves.
But are they really homeless? Some people live in $200,000 houses that are not homeless, but that's their career.
Well, now there are scammers.
I mean, really. I know for a fact that happened in Charlotte.
Yes, this is a much older statistic, but in Charlotte specifically, it used to be that a panhandler, on average in Charlotte, made $60K a year.
That's not bad.
No, it's not.
And if you throw a dog in there, people feel sorry for you and the dog, you get double.
That's true.
But no, they are, seriously though, they are homeless people that are having a tough time, veterans and that sort of thing. So it's not just, there are some people struggling out here.
Yeah, it definitely is an issue. And in regards to that church, there is an upcoming fundraiser, I think, to help alleviate some of that pressure.
Yes, it's being held by the Faith, Hope, Love Community Enrichment Center and the Royal Priesthood Biker Church. They're trying to raise the money, and hopefully they get it. Hopefully they can pay their fines.
Again, that was $60,000. $60,000 fine.
Yeah, but that won't be the only fine. If they don't clean it up, I don't know. They could keep fining them whatever. But that's a story we need to research more and see kind of what's going on there. I hope you enjoyed today's Who Gives a Hoot segment. This is segment number 2, and hopefully you learned something. And if you want to comment for or against, agree with us, disagree, let's start the discussion on the topics we discussed.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of these round table discussions, so to speak, and we definitely want you guys to engage, and it's okay to have a difference of opinion. That's what these are for.
And we are not lawyers. We do not give law advice, but a lot of people send us documentations for us to look at. We are not lawyers, but we will vet information given to us. So keep feeding us all that information. We do have some law firms that we could run it by, so give us information and give us news tips. We really appreciate it. If you have any stories out there that you would like us to cover, let us know. News tips, investigative stories, and we'll look into it.
And don't forget to subscribe to that YouTube channel. We're growing so fast. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, guys, at Wise News Network.
Also, another platform we're trying to grow is Twitter. So if you want to keep up to date with everything that we're doing, You can do that there as well.
Well, that's it. That's a wrap for Who Gives a Hoot. I'm Rusty Wise.
I'm Jermaine Gash.
And I'm Mason Beam.
Until you see us again, Who Gives a Hoot?
Bye, guys.